If you called the subject of our next story an Old Scrimshaw, he wouldn't be insulted at all. In fact, he would tell you that he wrote the book on it. We're off to Sweetwater, Indiana, to meet a man who is not only preserving a nearly lost American art form, but keeping it alive by teaching it to others.
Scrimshaw is considered one of the only American art forms. When whaling was big and the sailors would go out to sea for years at only until they had filled their ship with whale blubber and bone. And while they were out to sea, they would spend long periods of time where the work of the ship was done, where there wasn't anything. The rigging was working fine and all the sails were remended and things. So each sailor got an allotment of bone or whale's teeth and that sort of thing. They would take sailing needles and then etch into the surface of a tooth, a design usually reminiscent of the sea or their ship or their girlfriend at home or their home or something like that, and then take lampblack and rub into that.
But Ron Newton is no whaler. In fact, the deep seas are nowhere in sight of his studio, nestled in the hills of landlocked Brown County, Indiana.
I'd starve to death if I had to make a living doing it. I do it because I enjoy doing it.
So what would make a landlubber like Ron take up this little-known, labor-intensive art form?
I was like so many people that I meet still today that had no idea what Scrimshaw was, never heard of the word until I used to collect pocket knives, and my, at the time, girlfriend and I were at a knife show, and I saw a knife with some really neat etchings on the handle. So I mentioned how beautiful that knife was, and she said, "Oh yeah, that's Scrimshaw." And she was really impressed with it, and I was into impressing my girlfriend at the time. So I stole one of her dog bones from her dog, polished one surface, and then used a pocket knife and scratched a unicorn in it and gave it back to her. That piece is still in her possession, and that's my wife now. Just started playing with it, and then playing with different kinds of color mediums, different kinds of black. And several years ago, I was taking a class at the folk school, blacksmithing class at the folk school in J.C. Campbell in North Carolina. In part of a conversation, I got to thinking, well, you know, maybe they would be interested. So I approached the school administrator, and she said, well, write me a proposal, send me some pictures. So I did, and then I've been on their list for a while. In the process of doing that, I would find myself, well, you know, I can stand up and talk about this process, like sharpening a tool or making one, or how to cut a tool, or how to create a pattern and stuff like that all day long. But you know, it's better if they've got something in their hands as well as me talking about it. So I started developing handouts for different parts of it, and found myself one day looking at and organizing, getting ready to go back to teach a class. And I thought, well, yeah, this could make a book. So I started pulling it together and trying to organize things and writing this and writing that, and I've ended up with a book now that was published just a few months ago.
For a short time, Ron set down the ivory to scribe at his computer. As with his two favorite pieces, the effort Ron puts into his art is often only repaid by his own satisfaction.
Recently, I was reunited with a niece. She came to visit up here and she saw some of my work, and she plays in a bluegrass band in North Carolina. Their mandolin player daughter was killed in an auto accident. I think it was just 5 or 6 days before her 16th birthday or 18th birthday. He was having Wayne Henderson, who's a well-known stringed instrument maker in North Carolina, build a mandolin for him, and he asked me if I would do a portrait of his daughter that was killed for the truss rod cover. And so I made one out of ivory for him, and then did his daughter's portrait in the middle of it, and her name at the top, and the dates of her birth and death at the bottom. My wife's father was a well-known sports figure in Indianapolis, and played baseball, coached basketball. We had an old picture of him. I think it was from the late 40s maybe, of him in his baseball uniform, and he was up to bat and ready to swing. And on about a 8x8 piece, did a portrait of him at bat like that, and did it and then laid it on a cigar box for him. Most of the work is pretty much miniature type stuff. The cigar box I did of my father-in-law, it would be considered a very large piece, very large piece. We don't do great big huge canvases or any kind of canvas for that matter. Oh, I'd like to see it take off again.